Coming up, a couple of top-ranked teams take a tumble. We'll recap those upsets and the rest of the week that was in the Dakotas.
And we've got a ton of big games to preview, including some playoff action in North Dakota.
All that plus a sneak peek at our Friday night itinerary and another round of Pigskin Pick'em. Varsity Sports starts right now. And how is everybody doing? Alongside Jason Andera, I am Jay Elsen. The regular season is all but wrapped up, and in some cases, it is wrapped up.
It is, and these teams are changing week by week. We're finding the teams that are really gaining momentum as they go toward the playoffs. It's kind of hard to gauge what's going to happen if last week is any indication.
All right, well, let's take a look first at what happened last week in North and South Dakota. We start tonight with our South Dakota Rewind, where the Brandon Valley Lynx did what Roosevelt's 6 previous opponents failed to do as they held the Riders' offense to just one short field touchdown in a 21-7 upset of the top-ranked Riders. The Lynx defense allowed just 171 total yards, while Alex Waltner paced the offense with 2 important touchdown passes.
You know, my hat's off to the coaching staff, defensive staff especially, coming up with all those turnovers and only to give up 7 points on basically which was a special teams mistake by us or a bad snap.
The Lincoln Patriots used a familiar combo to fuel a big first half through the air. Cole DeBerg and Lee Ransom connected for 165 yards in the opening 24 minutes to propel Lincoln to a 62-39 win over Rapid City Central.
South Dakota has a new all-time wins leader. O'Gorman's Steve Keeter notched career victory number 285 in the night's 47-7 rout of Rapid City Stevens. Boston Bauer did his part with a couple of touchdown runs before leaving the game due to injury, and he wasn't the only one. Fellow running back Dodie McQuinja also left this game early, so stay tuned on those.
Harrisburg got more than they could handle, almost more than they could handle, against Douglas. Each team got 2 touchdowns in regulation and 1 in overtime. The difference, Harrisburg made that extra point in overtime. Douglas didn't. The Tigers escape with a 21-20 overtime victory.
The craziest game of the week took place at Joe Quintal Field in Mitchell, where the host Colonels and visiting Bobcats from Brookings combined to score 13 touchdowns on the night. In the end, though, it was Mitchell pulling out the 49-41 win behind the play of their quarterback, Cannon Nelson. The senior rushed for 237 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also threw for 2. The Colonels, Jason, have won 5 straight and have put up 6 or more touchdowns in each of the last 4 games.
You know, I think, like I said, give credit to the kids. We wanted to get out on them right away. We talked about it in pregame. We talked about it this week. But, you know, controlling what we could control and playing hard throughout the entire football game. And like I said, most defenses right here tonight, you know, they say our guys hung in there, and we're very proud of their effort, you know, across the board. Some big plays, especially in that third quarter. But difference in the football game is they turned it over twice. You know, that's the big difference in the game.
Yankton had gone 2 full weeks without a score coming into their matchup with Huron, but they broke out of that funk in a big way. Tanner Frick found the end zone twice early, and the Bucks offense really took it off from there. Yankton tops the Tigers 45-18 to get back into the win column.
West Central went back to basics in their matchup with T-Area. The biggest beneficiary of that was Jonah Rechtenbaugh. The senior accounted for 206 of his team's 300-plus rushing yards. He scored 3 touchdowns as well as the Trojans thumped the Titans 40-10.
And Canastota, they also had the running game going on Friday. Jared Nielsen and Jalen Kaufman combined for 281 yards, helped the Hawks pull away in the second half against Alcester Hudson. The 50-14 final was that's been the closest margin of victory for the Hawks this season.
We turned it on and made some adjustments, and it shows the grit that these boys have and the ability to play it on the fly. We had to do some adjustments to our defensive line, change some things up, and then create a couple different cues for our linebackers to see things when they were happening. Hats off to the quarterback and wide receiver combination there between those two, 18 and 9. They work well together, and they beat us a couple of times. Seniors, 8 seniors that have been chomping at the bit. They were freshmen when we went and won a state championship in 2012. And they've been waiting for it. Last year, losing in the semis was a heartbreaker for us. And it's been a chip on our shoulder, and it's something we got to get back to, and we want to get to Vermilion. We got to finish the regular season, do what we can do, and then continue on. Our offensive line and defensive line is strong, and when you've got skilled players in the backfield that can turn it on a drop of a hat, it's a great thing to have.
Bonham visited Woolsey-Wessington for a battle of top-tier 9AA teams, but it was Hunter Johnson and the Warbirds that flexed their muscles in this one. Johnson ran for a season-high 367 yards and 4 touchdowns to lead his team to a comfortable 46-22 win over the Cavaliers. Hunter Johnson was really good, Jason, but his performance was not enough, if you could believe that, to earn him our varsity game ball for South Dakota.
Yeah, you could have picked about 5 guys this week that would earn that, but I gave it to Josh Brown. He was in a rivalry game against Dubrook, put up 309 yards of rushing, 7 touchdowns, while his teammate also put up 254 and 4 touchdowns. But Brown getting in the end zone 7 times, that's going to get you the game ball almost every time.
Here's a quick look at the list of other contenders for this week's award. Lee Ransom again standing out. Huge night for him as the Patriots get back on track with a win over Rapid City Central.
And Cannon Nelson, we got to mention, over 200 yards on the ground, 4 total touchdowns he accounted for. Big night for him.
Mitchell is rolling, that is for sure.
One more side note, we said we'd get back to the O'Gorman injury situation. They're looking for Boston Bauer and Dodie McQuinja to find their way back sometime before the playoffs, but they'll use them conservatively up until then.
Well, it's certainly good news. I always hate to see guys losing time due to injury. And Bauer had already missed a significant time.
That was the ankle that was sore, I guess.
In the offseason. All right, well, Minot ran out of magic in Bismarck on Friday. We'll recap their battle with the Demons and the rest of the week in North Dakota right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
Welcome back. Well, Jason, I know you were well aware that coming into last week, there was one undefeated AAA team remaining in the state of North Dakota. Minot High, 6-0. They had a firm grip on the top spot in your power rankings. Unfortunately for them, though, the magic ran dry in the capital city. The high-powered Minot offense stifled all night by a tough Bismarck defense. The Demons turned Minot over 3 times on downs, and when they weren't doing that, they were physically taking the football away. Bismarck recorded 5 takeaways on the night, 3 fumbles and 2 interceptions, and they hand the Magi their first loss by a score of 27-7. Both teams now have 1 loss in the region.
Yeah, there's 3 teams with 1 loss atop the WDA. It's going to start getting crazy. But let's move out east, where West Fargo, they welcome back Dante Genova from injury. He returned to thanks by plowing for 110 yards and a touchdown in the team's 40-13 win over Fargo Davies. Creighton Fowl turned in another great quarterbacking performance. He went 4 for 9, 144 yards through the air with a touchdown, and he also ran for 136 and 2 scores. West Fargo is still unbeaten in that East region.
Back west now, Bismarck Central looks like a totally different team with Dalton Feeney back under center. The Patriots have averaged 39 points in the 2 games since his return, which includes Friday's 34-7 win over Jamestown. In that game, Feeney connected on 16 of 20 passes for 265 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Offense wasn't the issue for Wahpeton on Friday. The problem was scoring. The Huskies outgained Fargo Shanley 442-232, but only got 1 touchdown to show for it. The Deacon defense stepped up to help Shanley seal that game when Devin Kleiman took an interception back for 30 yards and gave the Deacons a 14-6 win.
Just bend, not break. You know, they're going to make some plays. That's a heck of a team, and we just didn't break tonight.
Well, as I said, we're in a cover 2 over there, and he looked to the right, so and Kane had him covered for the deep, so I just went to the left and I got the pick. He threw it right to me. So.
Okay, with the recap now complete, it's time to hand out our varsity game ball for North Dakota. And this week it goes to West Fargo quarterback Creighton Fowl. Jason, as you said earlier, he got it done through the air and on the ground against Davies.
Exactly. They needed a big performance from their senior quarterback going up against Fargo Davies, a team that looked like they're trying to get back in this mix in the East, but Fowl did a great job. 136 yards, as we said, on the ground, threw very efficiently through the air once again, and led a very strong team to a dominant win over the defending champs.
All right, congratulations to Creighton Fowl. Coming up, Jason and I will make our picks for some of this week's top matchups. But first, it's playoff time for 9-man teams in North Dakota. We'll preview the opening round next.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. Get alongside Jason Andera. I am Jay Elsen. Well, we've looked back. Now it's time to take some time to look forward a little bit, Jason. Some big games coming up in North Dakota. Before we get to the playoff stuff with the 9-man teams, let's take a look at some of the games that we're going to hit for Varsity Sports Live this Friday. A big one in Class 2A. Beulah travels to Valley City.
Yeah, this is 1 versus 2 if you look at the writers' poll, and they both deserve it. Valley City's played excellent defense this year. You look at their stats, they're right up there with any team in this class. I'm not sure if they get the credit for it. They have that one loss in their loss column, but of course that was a forfeit because of an ineligible player earlier in the season. They self-reported that, so really they have an unblemished record if you look at the quality of their team. Playing against Beulah, a team that's really senior heavy. So you've got Valley City, a really junior heavy team. It's kind of up and coming against Beulah, who really is putting it all together this year. There's going to be some points scored in this game, but you got some big boys with some physicality that's going to be happening here. And neither of these teams have played a huge game for a few weeks, so this will be fun for them to tune up for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun to see how that one plays out in Valley City. Another big game just a little farther west in the capital city in Bismarck. 2 big heavyweights going at it, Bismarck and Century in the Community Bowl.
Every year this game really takes on a culture of its own, and this year is no different. And I think you're going to have a little bit more even teams than we've had in the past few years. Century hasn't won this rivalry matchup since 2010. This year, I think they have a much better chance than they've had in the last few years, and it's because of Dalton Feeney. We've talked about him, haven't we, Jay? He's been a difference maker, hasn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, the efficiency that he has shown at the quarterback spot. I mean, 16 of 20 last week. That's incredible for a high school quarterback. 265 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's got 8 touchdowns in the 2 games since he's been back. I mean, those are incredible numbers.
And in the first game he was back, played Dickinson, arguably the best defense in the WDA to that point. Well, there's a new argument for the Bismarck Demons. The way they've been playing defense over the last 4 weeks in their winning streak, they've only averaged 7 points allowed in that span. I think it's that big defense against what Dalton Feeney can do on offense. Who's going to make more big plays? Last week, the Demons did it with their defense, with their big takeaways. And Century also did it with their big plays down the field. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
Those games, as much fun as they are not postseason games. Postseason games always just a little bit more to them.
You got it.
And so we're looking forward to the start of the 9-man playoffs already. Remember, these guys get going a couple weeks earlier than everybody else in the regular season. That's why there's so many more teams, and that's why they got to get into the postseason earlier as well. And as we look at a lot of good teams that aren't playing this first round, Jason, but there's still some pretty good games on this slate.
Yeah, so you see a lot of buys this first round from those top-ranked teams, but this week is the week about who's going to make it from the rest of that field. And you look at the defending champions, Cavalier, with just that 1 loss this year, they had to play this first-round game because they couldn't beat Thompson in the regular season. And they've been doing it since that game without their starting quarterback. They've got a tough matchup right away with Napoleon Gackle-Streeter, so that's one to watch. And then you see what Lemoore, Litchfield, Marion has done out east. I think that's going to be a fun one with New Rockford, Cheyenne in Region 2, so Region 1-2 matchup. And another big one to watch out for, Richardson, Taylor, Hebron. They're out of Region 5 taking on TGU. It's been a little bit slippery. They've been a good team that really kind of been under the radar, so there's a few teams to watch out for as we get ready for this first round matchup of playoffs.
Second round games October 24th, quarterfinals on Halloween, semifinals November 7th, and then the championship game 9 a.m. On November 13th at the Fargo Dome. So lots to look forward to in the 9-man class here over the next couple of weeks as they get going in postseason play. All right, well, the 2 top teams in Class 9AA in South Dakota are set to square off Friday. We're going to take a closer look at that and the rest of our scheduled stops for Varsity Sports Live when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
Well, it's time to dig a little deeper into the Midco SN game plan for this Friday night. We've already shown you some of the North Dakota games we're going to plan on hitting for Varsity Sports Live. Now it's time to unveil our scheduled stops for South Dakota. And right at the top of this list, Jason, phenomenal game in the 9AA ranks as Woolsey Wessington travels to Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central. That game's going to be in Woonsocket, but they don't get much better than this. These two teams have been dominant, to say the least.
Yeah, we've only had a chance to cover one of each team's games this season, and you could tell just by watching these guys, there's a lot of talent on that field. Last season, they played at the end of regulation season and played an unbelievable game. I expect nothing short of that this time around. If you look at the common opponents in these games, these teams have played against very similar. I mean, if you're going to project this, if you're doing Vegas odds on this one, this might be a pick 'em. We've got some very talented teams. The quarterbacks look very good. You see what Wolsey Wessington does with their passing game. Only 35 passes throughout the year. They get it done on the ground. Hunter Johnson went over 2,000 yards last season, even in the shadows of what Lorenzo Williams did last year, put up 2,000. This year, he's on pace for that same 2,000 yards. Wow. And they've got great help from Ogunja Malusi, too, another 800-yard guy for Wolsey Wessington. So a lot of power on that side. On the Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central side, Landon Oshner is the guy to stop, and they can pass the ball a little bit, too, with Tucker Kingsbury in the pocket. Can't wait for highlights on this one on Friday.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting in Class 11 AA, Jason, as we get to the bigger schools now. Mitchell at Pierre, and obviously Pierre's been a team a lot of people have been high on all year, and they've played. They've matched those expectations for the most part. Mitchell has kind of surprised some people. They've really gotten on a roll here, 5 straight wins, and they've been piling up the offensive numbers here of late.
This goes kind of back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, how teams have changed throughout the season. If we would have previewed this game 2 weeks ago, can you imagine what we would have said?
Right.
But since then, Mitchell has taken down Lincoln and Brookings. Pierre has lost those 2 games, and all of a sudden, we've got the 2 best teams in AA squaring off in Pierre this week with, I think, the 2 best quarterbacks in maybe the entire state. Cannon Nelson going up against Brevin Kaiser. This one's going to be as good as advertised.
Well, and I think when you look at Mitchell a little closer, you realize 5 games in a row that they've won, and that's impressive, and the 4 straight games of 40-plus points.
Yeah.
That's also impressive. You can't argue with their offensive numbers, but what's hard to believe is that it all got started with a 13-10 overtime win against Watertown.
Oh, yeah. Both these teams struggled with Watertown.
Right, and nothing about that game would have said, oh, yeah, Mitchell's going to start rolling from here, but here we are 5 weeks later.
You know, we talked to Steve Morgan on Friday night, and he said the same thing. You could just see the confidence growing and growing, and a lot of that has to do with their lines up front. No senior starters on either the defense or the offensive lines for Mitchell, but as we get deep into the season, they're getting experience. They know what to do. They know how to block for their quarterback, Cannon Nelson. Things are looking very good for the Colonels right now.
Confidence can be an awfully large asset to a high school football team, that's for sure. One game out west of Belle Fourche at St. Thomas More, the battle of undefeated teams.
Yeah, exactly. Belle Fourche this year quietly has been ringing up the victories, and that's because of their running back, Bryson Westland. This guy, 200 yards for him is just another day at the office. No problem. He's getting into the 300-yard range once in a while, too. So that is job number 1 for St. Thomas More. We know about their speed. Are you physical enough to stop Bryson Westland? If they get that job done, St. Thomas More is the superior team here.
All right, a couple of good games, and all of it, a lot of it you're going to be able to catch here on Friday night. Varsity Sports Live. Jason Andera and Tom Neiman going to be breaking down the situation in North and South Dakota for you. Highlights, analysis, all that good stuff.
You got it.
10:30 Friday night right here on Midco Sports Network. All right, well, before we wrap things up, Jandy and I have a little unfinished business. Our head-to-head battle resumes next as we play another round of Pigskin Pickup. This is Varsity Sports.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. We're going to wrap things up as we do every week with another round of Pigskin Pick'em. And don't look now, folks. It's a brand new game. Jay had a good week last week.
Look at that, Jay.
Yeah.
You got your upset pick right again. So we are equal on our not only our overall points, but our record. This is a new season right here.
Jay 1-3 last week. He needs to bounce back. All right, up first, that big 9-man game in South Dakota that we just talked about. Wolsey Wessington at Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central.
Oh, boy. If I had a coin right now, I might flip it and just call that the winner. I'm going to go with the home team here, though. I'm going to take Woonsocket, Wessington Springs, Sanborn Central. I think the passing game makes a few more big plays, just enough stops on Hunter Johnson to get the win.
All right, the team that's going to win this game, Jason, is the team that finds a way to get some stops. The Warbirds pitched 4 shutouts this season. I do not think they're going to do that this week, but I do think their defense will be the difference. Give me
their
Woolsey
defense will be
Wessington.
okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll agree to disagree.
Mitchell at Pierre.
Boy, it's tough not to pick Mitchell after what they've done over the last month, just getting better and better. Their problem is haven't been able to do it on the defensive end, and I think Pierre has enough defense to at least contain Cannon Nelson, and I think they get back on the winning streak at home here. I think the Govs.
Yeah, the Colonels' recent run has been impressive. You can't argue about it, but let's not forget that the combined records of the teams they've beaten during that streak, 11-24. If they prove themselves against a team like Pierre, I'll be a believer, but I don't think they'll be able to do it. I think the streak stops at 5.
Challenge issued, Mitchell.
All right, in North Dakota Class 2A, the best one of the week, Beulah at Valley City.
Both of these teams haven't had a real tough game in a couple weeks. I think Valley City will get it done, though. Their juniors aren't as experienced as Beulah, but I think they're more talented.
We disagree again. The key here is whether Valley City can contain the Miners' playmakers. Quarterback Casey Walker counted for 447 yards of total offense and 6 touchdowns last week against Dickinson Trinity. Mikey Morris ran for 216. Yeah. That's just 2 of the guys they can hurt you with. Too many weapons. I say Beulah gets the win and goes to 8-0 in this one. All right. Finally, Bismarck at Century, the big game in the capital city.
I'm going to take a page out of your book, Jay. I have no explanation for this. Just
It
a
worked.
feeling.
It worked
Just
last
a
week.
feeling that Dalton Feeney is going to get his troops going in the right direction, and Century is going to pull off their first win against Bismarck since 2010.
For me, this is the toughest pick of the week right here. On one hand, you've got this Century team that has looked much more dangerous since the return of Dalton Feeney, but Bismarck really started to click defensively. The Demons have allowed a total of 28 points, as you mentioned earlier, in the 4 games since their loss to Dickinson. I think they slow down Feeney as well. Give me Bismarck high. Finally, quickly, upset picks of the week.
I'm going to take Coleman Egan to beat Del Rapids St. Mary. A little bit off the path, but not a huge upset.
I don't have a huge upset for you either, but I am going to take Baltic over Parker. Parker's 5 wins against teams with a combined record of 7-24. Baltic's 2 losses to teams with combined record of 11-2. That's enough
You'll
for
get
me.
it right.
All right, that's going to do it for us for this week. For Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elsen. Remember to bring it back here Friday night. Varsity Sports Live starts at 10:30.